Hey everybody, welcome back to a production meeting. It's been a year almost, you guys. That's crazy. We need to get together more often because we have a lot to say in our personal lives and stuff, and opinions to be had. How have you guys
Yes.
been over the last 18 months, whatever it's been?
Terrible, Clint. This has been a crappy year of movies. This is why we didn't get together. 2024. No, I'm just kidding. Well, sort of.
2025.
We did drop
Yeah,
off at one point because we had nothing to talk about.
Right,
If you guys recall,
right.
we pushed
yeah.
back up
Um,
so many times, and that was it.
yeah, really. It's been, yeah. I mean, I joke and I jest, but I'm like, it wasn't a great year for films. I mean, for me personally, I'm like, it just was called kind of middle of the road, where couple of good nuggets and then couple of stinkers, and then the rest of it are just like, it's something to go see. Um, I didn't play that many games either. I played predominantly Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Black Myth Wukong, and what was the game? Game of the year, Astrobot, which is really solid. It's very Mario-esque. So if anybody got a PlayStation 5, definitely check that out. It's really solid, really fun. So
Sweet. Ryan,
Lots of
what do you think?
movies.
Lots of movies.
Lots of
I'm with
movies.
you. I'm with you. I did like 40 this year, 40 something, plus TV shows. So yeah, we have lots to talk about. Um, so yeah, let's jump right in because we have no news. Um, we usually post it on our Facebook page anyway. But when we do return, which hopefully crossing fingers will be next week, um, we will have some news to talk about and stuff and some movie to watch because Wolfman comes out this weekend, right? Yes. So we will talk about Wolfman next week. But anyway, let's jump right into it. So we're gonna do our annual best and worst of the year. So let's get the worst out of the way first. Um, so I'm gonna do some honorable mentions because these weren't horrible, uh, but they weren't in my top. We're gonna do top five this year. So it's a couple of honorable mentions. So let's get some honorable mentions out of the way first. So for me, Never Let Go was decent.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't like horrible. Um, Bad Boys Ride or Die wasn't horrible, but it wasn't really great either. Um, I put on here Quiet Place Day One was pretty middle of the back. Um,
Hmm.
Hitman on Netflix with Glenn Powell. Again, it was like a lot of critics really liked it, but I was just like, yeah, this is okay. Um, let's see here. Roadhouse, I think was not horrible.
Oh yeah. Forgot
And
about
Kingdom
that
and
one.
Planet of the Apes. But there's a bunch of them here that's
Forgot
not
about that
like,
too.
yeah, they're not horrible, but like, I mean, they don't really deserve to be on any type of list, maybe. So, you guys got some honorable mentions for worst?
I personally don't. But it's funny you say. I'm glad you said that about Planet of the Apes. I completely forgot that I watched that. Did I not even put it on my list this year?
What?
Um, I feel like I may have accidentally deleted that or something. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. I did not think that that was that great of a movie, and I don't know if I'm on record for saying that I love the trilogy remakes with Andy Serkis, and those are especially. I always get the titles mixed up. Whichever the second one is, I think that's
Dawn.
Dawn. I was going to say Dawn. Um,
Freaking
Phenomenal
love
movies.
that movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Yes. I sit there and I'm like, I could watch that over and over and just be like, this is a fantastic movie. Like, I can already know what happens, and I'm like, this is great. This It might just be because, Caesar is definitely removed, though, like legendary-fied, however you would pronounce that. But it just feels like something's missing from that. It's just like maybe we don't have the greatest setup for these characters that we don't know yet. So it's like, yeah. So I won't say that that's a dishonorable mention for me, just because it wasn't horrible, but yeah, it's just kind of like it's fine, it's whatever. It just but we're gonna get what, three more of these, four more
Probably.
of these,
Yes.
something like that. So I need to put that in the list somewhere though, of my all-time watch list. But yeah, I don't have any honorable or dishonorable mentions. Ryan, you must.
I must. I have many. And as Clint alluded to, I have a bit extra. I'm just gonna rattle off my honorable mentions for my 10 and then count my 10 through 5 as or 10 through 4 as honorable mentions. 10 through 6. Anyway, so long story short, I started watching the movie Pool Man with Chris Pine. I haven't finished it. It has the makings of a top 5, but since I haven't finished it, we'll see if I can get back to it.
Sweet.
I didn't like the movie Red One at all. I don't like Dwayne Johnson. Uh,
Not
I
the
always
Rock.
go I always go through and pick one that I forget existed, and ISS is that one this year. I liked about 5 minutes of the Garfield movie, so that's a good honorable mention for me. Um, I liked much more of Imaginary, but the low and highs of that movie are just tonal whiplash. By the way, my list is mostly horror movies.
Oh, okay.
The Watchers, because I don't know, it's horror movies.
Oh
It's
yeah.
Sony. What else came out this year? The Watchers, not very good. Madam Web, nowhere near the bottom of the barrel as everybody said it was. Still very bad.
Yes.
The Beekeeper, I just bee puns for 1 hour and 45 minutes. And then just sitting outside of my top 5, I hated Argyle. Not quite enough to put it on that list, but I did not like Argyle. The more I thought about it, the more it did not grow on me whatsoever.
Mhm.
That is fair. All right. Then let's go into our top 5 uh worst of the year because we like to start with the worst stuff. If you guys don't mind, I'm gonna go first because this is fresh in my mind right now. So my number 5 for worst is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, Maddie. Um, but I couldn't with this movie. I don't know why. I know there's worse movies out there, but I think the expectations were just so high, maybe, um, that it was just I don't know. They went so far away from what made the first one, like the Aftermath, so good, that they couldn't recapture that. And I don't know if that's because Jason Reitman like walked away from it, to do Saturday Night or whatever. But I just feel like they went completely away from whatever made the Afterlife like better, as a good sequel to this.
I agree, Clint. I absolutely, and I feel guilty about saying like I'll spoil alert. It's not going to make my top worst list, but I did sit there and go, this is not great. This is because I'm like, Afterlife is fun. It does a little bit of cheat coding by taking a lot of the score from the original and just tweaking it a little bit. And it's got a lot of the same plot. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. We did that with Force Awakens. Whatever. It's been done. But they took Phoebe, who was legitimately like a great new character and fun and like smart and fun to watch and everything, and then they made her real moody, and they just kind of wrote her character in kind of a not likable like corner. And I dislike that. I was like, I want to like her more. I want to see more of her, and she just was more moody. And it's not necessarily I don't know the actress's name, but not her fault or anything by any means. I think it was just the writing, and I think that's what you were going into. Reitman
Right.
walking away had a lot to do with that, and so it just felt like that wasn't a great movie. Again, not in my personal list, but I agree with you. It was just okay at best. So
Hmm.
sorry, I wanted to put my interjection in that.
Oh yeah. Go
Clint, let
ahead,
me go
bud.
next.
Yes.
Clint, my number 5 is also Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I I picked on
Validation.
franchises on my list, and I was so happy you did the same because I was like, am I singling out a perfectly okay movie? No, it is not acceptable for a movie in a franchise of this caliber to be on average, because the first one pulls a lot of weight in that statement, but to be just phoning in the whole movie, it feels like. Too many characters,
Hmm.
not enough plot. Who cares? Everyone I talk to, they're like, "Oh, but that comedian was great." And I was like, that's one of the many, many, many problems with the movie is that you're just saying that comedian was great because you remember a couple chuckles from the movie. Like
Right.
he's funny. Maybe a highlight by default of the fact that nobody else stands out in this whole movie.
Right.
Just kind of nothing. Just very empty. In fact, this was the saving grace that kept me from thinking negatively about Godzilla X Kong for the whole year. Perfectly okay movie that one because of Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Eh. So
Yeah.
I flip-flopped between putting that as my five and then but I ultimately decided to put, and Clint mentioned it earlier, was Quiet Place Day One because it's kind of the same thing. Like we have these great John Krasinski, set like, albeit the second one isn't quite as good as the first one, but still pretty solid. A world setup, and it's a great, unique story. And then we don't really learn anything new from this movie. Not we don't learn about where the creatures exactly came from. We just get basically the same thing, just in a different setting. I mean, we learn about where I guess those folks in the second movie on that island, I guess where they came from originally, I guess. But like it just felt like we weren't we weren't treading any new ground, and like I didn't feel super invested in these characters. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's just we were just there. Now, granted, I didn't hate this movie, but I just was like, I don't I don't highly recommend this movie, really, because I would say watch the first two, and then you don't really need to visit this one. It just is kind of like you can blow it off. So yeah, I mean, Clint and I watched this one, and I think we pretty much agreed dead on this. It just was like, this didn't need to be made, or if it needed to be, it could have been made. Just let's get some more information. And like, I mean, Clint told me about like their misdirection in New York. Like they were supposed to go this way, like north, and they're going north from wherever, and they actually end up in a place that should be south
Mhm.
geographically, and it just like it doesn't make sense. I can't remember
Yeah.
where the locations were. I just remember you saying that, and I was like, yeah, that's another thing. It's like, all right. Yeah, it's not horrible. I mean, I wouldn't de-recommend, like, if you're gonna go watch it, if you have strong feelings, like go ahead, do your thing, but like whatever. So I will kick off four and we'll go back around the horn. I didn't want to put this on my list because I felt strongly about it going into it. I was like, I want this to be good, but it was probably my most disappointing film is Monkey Man.
Mm.
Um,
I forgot about Monkey Man.
yes. Now, Dev Patel, I actually will give him like a little bit of grace on this. I think it was a decent, like, what do you call it? Directorial debut. Like it was
Yes.
okay in a lot of different instances. I'll give him that pass, but like, objectively speaking and just keeping him as fair, same level as everybody else, this isn't that great of a movie. We're seeing like a lot of the same montages kind of over and over. I mean, well, not the same montages, but the same kind of montages. And I don't know if you guys watched it and felt the same way, but I felt like there were a lot of scenes that were like put out of order. Like it didn't make sense. Like we needed that information prior, or it would have made sense to have that information later. And I just was like, and then they, try to, mask it all up by having this big, fight sequence at the end that just was like, I mean, it was okay. But by the time I got to that, I was just like, I don't know. That's definitely not enough to save this movie. So, I would say a five. Um, and again, not a horrible movie and a decent directorial debut could have definitely been worse. But Yeah, just not kind of that's my most disappointing movie of this year for sure.
Well, you picked, I was gonna jokingly transition and say, oh, but while Monkey Man might have been the second worst paced movie of the year as a joke, Monkey Man was the worst paced movie of the year. But Kraven the Hunter tried really hard
Oh
to
man.
match that for me, which comes in at my number four. Uh, but when they finish it, I might move it up higher on the list to make sure to adjust for the fact that they released an obviously unfinished movie into theaters. Um,
Wow.
it's not quite Morbius bad. And I didn't see the third Venom, so maybe I could have had a trio of Sony on this list. Um, but Craven was very incompetently put together.
Wow.
Some is the worst ADR I've ever seen, which is the second time this year I've said that, both thanks to Sony. Um, but from bad pacing and in like here's an example, right? So his last name is Kravenoff, so he goes by Craven. And then like 10 times in the movie, they're like, nobody knows who this guy is. And I'm like, could it be Craven off? Um, but my favorite part, and this is why we have to do this more often, because I would have gotten this complaint out of the way, is at one point in a line of dialogue in this movie, a character says, "A week later, she died, and I never saw her again," as opposed to,
She died and I saw her next week.
yeah, there's a bit where there's some people like fall down a mountain for some reason, and it's done in a big bad CGI wide, and then they come crashing down, and then he jumps up and he's like, "Oh, I'm looking for this person," and I'm like, "All right, you're looking for a hospital, sir." It's a really bad movie. I'm done talking about it. Clint, what's your number four?
Um, okay. My number four, um, sorry. My number four is actually Argyle. Um, I don't, yeah.
But actually, it's not really Argyle because you're Argyle the
Oh my
whole
gosh.
time.
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave it at that because I don't even know what this movie was supposed to be. So much potential here. So much potential. Um, so yeah, there's Argyle. My number three. So number three for me was Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Um, I yeah, it's just another one of those movies that was just like you have this franchise. It's like I wouldn't say Beverly Hills Cop was an iconic franchise, but it is a franchise, a staple of a franchise, right? It's pretty well known. And then the third one is kind of like, okay. This one was literally like if they tried to get like they literally tried to get the band back together and then was like, we're gonna do the most 80s of 80s movie in 2023 or 2024, and it's gonna star um, Eddie Murphy, and it's gonna be 80s, and we're gonna have the soundtrack to be just as 80s, and yeah, but we can't do this in 2024 anymore because it's been done in the 80s. So yeah. And it's like it never says why like spoiler alert for everybody. Like it never says why like his daughter's angry at him too. It's just kind of like, well, he's a cop and like he does this thing, but like she's got some grudge, some daddy issues. And we're like, okay, cool, I guess. So that's Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F.
This is why I'm enjoying this one because like we haven't caught up on any of these movies, so I didn't even know that was a movie you had watched. I was gonna watch it, so I rewatched the first one, and I was like, "Nah, it's good enough," and I just finished on the first one.
Yep. Yeah.
But Ryan, what's your number three?
So not often, and we have a saying here called "Movie's got a movie," and that
Yeah.
often extends to the plot of a movie. Um, and we've talked about it. Like movies can have simple plots or not great plots. I have never seen a movie's plot sink itself so hard than Night Swim, because Haunted Pool is stupid and it never gets good. And this is honestly, if this were any more interesting, it would be an easy number one because it's the movie I've thought the most about this year on my bad list because of how stupid the plot is. People are like, "Oh yeah, but it's based on a short film." Yeah, that's why it should have stayed a short film because it's not a bad 8 minutes, but it is a bad 138 minutes or hour and 38 minutes. Nothing happens. It's boring. It's just Haunted Pool, the movie, and it's very, very, very bad. My top three, I'm pretty passionate about. This one, it could even bump its way up. I've got some recency bias for number two, but Night Swim, solid number three for me.
Nice.
I agree where the number three spot is kind of where I also get a little bit, passionate, sort of. My number three is Maxine. That movie was trash. I knew it was going to be trash going into it. Don't know why I would have expected anything else, which I didn't. The only saving grace of that film is Kevin Bacon. He was solid. I liked his character. You're supposed to dislike him, but I liked him, but in the way that I was supposed to dislike him, if that makes any sense. And I was just like, I wanted more of that character and like less of Maxine. Just call it whatever Kevin Bacon's character was. Just call that the movie. Because couldn't care less about the rest of it. It was all dumb. It was all like nonsensical. I guess yeah, it's a movie. You can only say movie's got a movie so much before it's like what. So I judge it harshly, even though I probably shouldn't. But I also very much disliked Pearl, and so I was like, maybe this will be a little bit better. No, nope, it's worse. It sours. X is like the best one out of the group, and then it just sour. It's like milk right after that. It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah,
So,
but
um,
Alex, like I understand what you're saying. Like movies got a movie, and like we have that saying in production meetings. Movies got a movie, but like this one didn't have the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like because
yeah,
it's like it takes again. It's like Beverly Hills Cop. It's like we're gonna take everything that you know about horror's 80 horror, and we're gonna shove it into this movie. And I think that's where I lost like respect for it because it was like it involved the Night Stalker, which was like yes, it's like a thing in the 1980s that kind of like it like drives that stake that it is takes place in 1980, like the 80s or whatever. Okay, cool. That's fine. And then like the porn star trying to become like an actual actress. That's another staple of the 80s. Okay, that's fine. And then you have the satanic type of like um the satanic cults and like everything else from the 80s and it's like okay, that's the same. But why do we have to have every single one of these like staples of horror, like the 80s horror in this movie just to make it so that we all understand that it takes place in the 80s? Like there's like if you watch X again, like it I think the reason why I liked X so much is because it's shot like um Texas Chainsaw, where it's like it
yeah,
looks grainy. It looks like it's supposed to be in the 70s, but it doesn't have to be, oh yeah, remember all this stuff that happens in like the 70s that was tragic? No, it's just like it's just a 70s horror movie, and that's what it's supposed to be. And I think that that was the problem with Maxine is that it's like it takes all these elements from the 80s that were horrific and was like, here you go.
yeah, exactly. And I would say it's a case of show not tell, and they technically don't tell you. They're just like, here's the '80s, here's the '80s right here. But like,
Yeah, like it was like, okay, I get it.
so yeah, I just am like, yeah. I mean, Kevin Bacon literally was the only thing I cared about this movie. He played a perfect scumbag, like
Mhm.
twisted, like Private Eye or whatever he was, and I'm just like, yeah. Take everything else out. And I'm good. So, but yeah. So I would never recommend that movie. Just only watch X if you ever are gonna, go through that trilogy. In fact, there might be another one after this. I don't know. I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember disliking it so much. But yeah, that was my number.
All right.
So I thought that yeah, Maxine was just blah. So don't need to go back to that. But my number two, you guys have already mentioned it. And it was a really early on movie. In fact, I think it was my first movie of 2024, Argyle. What an absolute steaming pile of crap. You guys already mentioned the oh man, but he's Argyle, but no, she's Argyle, but he's Argyle, but they're Argyle, I'm Argyle, we are Argyle. It's like a Venom movie, but with Argyle. I one of the things I couldn't stand is I can't ever remember her full name. Dallas Braden Howard?
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard, sorry.
Yes.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yes.
She kept doing the thing where she would like look at the camera and be like, I was like, after two of those shots, okay, don't do it again. But she kept going with that, and I was just like, I get it. That oh my gosh, Sam Rockwell and Henry Cavill, being Argyle, they are the same character. Oh my gosh, I get it. You see that? I need that not implemented anymore. So, but they kept going with it, and I like to like Sam Rockwell, but like sometimes I'm like, I'm always just a suspect that you are going to give me a not good performance. So you're not ever going to be fully trustworthy to me, not all the time. And my thoughts on that were exactly right because I was just like, this is dumb. This is, I mean, cliche probably. It's just boring. And then they, spoiler alert for anybody who's seen it, and if you haven't, don't. Is that they tie it all in with the um
Kingsman.
Kingsman movies. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's
Did they,
crazy.
did they
I mean,
really? I forgot about that.
I mean, they sort of do, but don't. It's just like, yeah, exactly. Like we didn't need that. And then like, there's like a part where she's skating on like oil or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. And I just was like, that was like, if nothing else in this movie, I was like, that's where I completely checked out. I was like, this is a steaming pile of crap. Um, and I didn't want to be. I thought it actually kind of looked, dare I say, fun going into it. I knew it wasn't going to be like the greatest movie, but I was like, maybe I'll, be like, oh, haha, that was funny. And I was like, nope, nope, this is dumb. The dumb movie.
It's
Don't go see it.
it's good on paper. Like if you look at it,
It
it
is.
should be good. Should be good on paper, but the
And honestly,
execution was just way off.
the trailer doesn't even look that bad, to be quite honest. I went into this going, I'm like, okay, this doesn't look too bad. And the more I would see it, I mean, I was like, okay, maybe this is a fun little action movie. And then, oh yeah, and then John Cena's in it for like, he lives up to his, because you don't see him
Not
ever in the
here.
movie. Yeah, he's never in the movie. He's like in it for like 2 minutes at best. So, but yeah, that was my number two movie. So, Ryan,
Okay.
you're number two. Drop the deuce.
I went to change because I realized I could wear my number two.
Oh, oh
Um, I
man.
I literally finished watching this around 8:30 because I was like,
Wow.
I didn't like, was it freaking Garfield? I was like, Garfield doesn't need to be my worst. And I heard Borderlands was the worst movie of the year. I don't think it's the worst movie of the year, but it is the least enjoyment I've gotten out of the worst movies of the year. It is just nothing. There's this, it's not funny, it's not exciting, it's not interesting. It tries to be all those things. Nobody in it cares about it, so why should I care about it? Um, it's also easily the single worst directed movie I've seen at least this year, maybe in a long time. I'm not saying it's worse than Cats, but it's worse. The direction is Eli Roth is 100% responsible for
That's
this.
it.
I liked Thanksgiving. That got a little bit of good graces that is now a negative for me, um, because it was just really bad. There's just nothing to
Yeah,
it.
I heard that the source material was like non-existent. Like they took nothing except for like names and maybe like looks and did nothing
Yeah, and I mean,
Nothing ran parallel.
this is especially this year. This is poor man's Mad Max copying poor man's Fallout.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds about right.
but if you really want a surprising little sincere moment ruined by a really stupid one-liner from Jack Black's Robot like 5 times, this is the movie for you because there's no sincerity to be had. And you guys probably heard me talk about Rampage a couple years ago. I am all for trashing a movie's lack of sincerity for making fun of an audience for caring. Gosh,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I hadn't
I
fallen
didn't even.
asleep.
I didn't bother with the movie because I heard it just was awful.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Very bad. Very bad. I will not be watching The Crow just to catch up from now. Like I was like, maybe I'll catch these, and I'm like, no, that was enough. One
Yeah.
catch up was enough.
That too was another one. I just word of mouth. I just heard like I was like, "There's no way this can be that bad." Like, I mean, it probably can't be like as good as the original, but I'm like, it can't be that bad. And then I'm like hearing people go, this is this is a hot turd." So I'm like, I'm not even bothering with the Crow either. So
Yeah, I'm not either. Okay, so my number 2 was Venom 3. Couldn't. I can't with these movies. I just can't. Um, I don't know how nobody's seen like the ending of this coming. Like they were just like the random acid bath in the middle of the desert for some reason on an Air Force base. Just like, yeah, we just have these just to kind of like melt our tanks. Nobody has one of these. Nobody. Like this is how we were gonna defeat these things. And then like as a comic book fan, we all know this. Null is like a major part and a major villain on like a Thanos type of level. And he was in the movie 2.5 minutes. So the main
Mhm.
villain of this movie is the bug that's like chasing them around, which is fine. But yeah, it was just no. Um, and to kind of slide into like more bad comic book movies, my number 1 was Joker 2. This was like a middle finger to literally everybody that enjoyed the first movie in some way or another. Um, it literally had no point, no like type of resolution to anything. Um, like he changes his mind like 3/4 through the movie. I don't want to be Joker anymore. Harley's like, well, if you don't want to be Joker, I don't want to date you. Okay, that sucks. She wasn't even like like and okay. And let me preface by saying that like I understand like there are certain liberties that these comic book movies need to take to kind of justify kind of twisting and like doing some different things with these characters because whatever we see on paper is not always going to translate into film or TV or whatever. But let's at least like keep like her craziness to be like actually that. Like she's nuts. And this was just like some bored housewife, I guess. She was just like some bored kid that just wanted to be like wanted some action and just wanted to have her face in the middle of everything and like literally just spent the whole movie just kind of like poking that bear just to see what he would do and it was just kind of like annoying after a while where it was just like okay like stop like we're not going to kill people just to kill people because he's the Joker like that's and then just to have him like stop being the Joker in the
But
middle of
Clint, for the rest of this, we need you to sing the rest of your thoughts because how will we know how you feel unless you get into a 1950s cover song?
that's not happening. um but I couldn't no yeah that was my number 1.
Yeah. All right, Ryan. What I'm very interested.
So
What is your number one?
Challengers.
I usually it might be a number 1. Um, So I usually like to have like some big movie that I just trash on for no reason.
Mhm.
Or like the utterly worst movie, the Artemis Fowl of the year, so to speak.
Right.
But this year, I actually did get to talk about my number one while we were still doing these. No movie this year both made me hate and enjoy watching it as The Strangers Chapter One. And I picked this because there's still two more that they've apparently made or something like that. Um, if you want to learn how to make a horror movie, you don't need to put on any other movie than Strangers Chapter One. Put this on and don't do any of those things because every other horror movie does those things. I was gonna make a joke about Craven the Hunter feeling like it was written by a computer because it probably was, but I was saving it for this because it's just every single thing in it is the most hollow, unnecessary, formulaic thing. In a year where we got genuinely good horror like Longlegs and First Omen, I mean, not amazing movies, but like we got some really interesting horror movies throughout the year. I'll
Mhm.
talk about at least two more of them soon. This was just kind of, hey, how much money can we get from teenagers? And picking on little moments, like the little peekaboo moments of like the spitting on, you know, horror icons like Michael Myers, where it's like there's a common sense to the daylight stalking of that. And now it's like, but he's in the mirror, but now we pan this way and we pan back and he's not there. And I'm like, his goal is to kill her. That's it. So where is he hiding behind that chair right there? Because it's the only place he could be in the room. I laughed a lot, and I don't usually give my like so bad it's good number one spot, but it was both, I think, objectively the worst film of the year that I saw, and a really enjoyably bad movie. So I might even recommend giving it a watch because it's really funny, but it's just so stupid, and I couldn't get over putting it there.
Yeah, I
No, we're done,
had that on
right?
my I had that on my radar for a while, Ryan, because I saw I was like, this looks interesting. Is that the one where it's M Night's daughter's direction, or am
No,
I
that's
am
The
I mixing that
Watchers.
up? The
Yeah,
Watchers.
that
I
was
knew I was yeah.
my number nine is The Watchers.
Yeah,
But
see, because I
see,
kept getting those mixed up. Watchers and Strangers.
Yeah.
but see, yes, Watchers is a bad movie. I'll preface by saying that. But it's like Argyle. It is good on paper. Like if you
Yep.
look at it on paper and you read it and you're like, oh, this should be awesome. And you watch it and you're like, I was tricked.
To add that to Watchers, I think you're right. Watchers is actually the idea is so interesting that the movie
Right.
suffers more for not being able to do anything with it. Whereas
Right.
Strangers is they've done this twice. This is the third one, and it's the same thing as the other two, except
Yeah.
dumber and worse.
Yeah. It's just a home invasion, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, we have to be quiet because we're in the crawl space. And they get out of the crawl space and they're like, let's go at full volume. And I'm like, the amount of the volume distance from there to here has not increased by more than 2 feet. They just, I was actively rooting against the protagonists.
All right, Alex.
That's always
What's your
sad.
number one?
We all know what I'm going to say here.
Don't, Alex, let's just don't do this. Don't do
My
this.
friends,
uh
this little number called Challengers.
okay,
I
moving
hated
on.
this movie. I hated this film. And I will spoil a little rest of this video and say that this will come back at some
Oh
point
yeah,
and
don't
be
worry. I'll
mentioned.
retort in my top five.
What's so funny about this though is like I'm literally stuck in the middle. Like I feel like a
You're
divorced
Zendaya, right?
yeah, yeah, I feel like a divorced
Yeah,
child where it's like I have to
yeah.
pick between the two because it's like I thought it wasn't bad, but there's like the ending that was just kind of like why are we watching this bag float around in the wind?
So, okay, the whole premise of the movie cannot be like judged upon like harshly because if it makes you feel uncomfortable, because that's what it's supposed to do. It is a love triangle, and it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable because it broaches the subject of three ways. It gets the intimate parts, and it's just like, okay, it's just you're a fly on the wall in this. Of course, don't judge the movie based on that. There are so many cinematic like issues I have with it because I'm like, why do we take these angles of like the characters are all like, hey, what are you thinking now, man? What do you think now? Oh man, I got her, blah blah blah. And I'm like, why are we close up on here? I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. I'm like, why is the same rave music played in every freaking scene ever, except the part that it probably should have been played, but then they replace it with a child choir at the end of the movie. I'm sorry. And then towards the end of the movie, we have a bunch of this newspaper blown around because we have to give the illusion that a bunch of wind is blown around. And how on God's earth are we ever going to do that without a bunch of freaking newspapers everywhere? And then Zendaya she has a baby face even to this day. She's like, I think just shy of 30, and she looks like she's 15 in through all of it. And it made me uncomfortable throughout all of it, especially when they go back to when she's like just 18 and like going into college and she's this big tennis prodigy. And they're like, hey, and I'm just like, this is giving me the ick. I don't like any of this. And then, and I know fairly, the rules of tennis pretty well. The very ending of this doesn't make sense whatsoever, in my opinion. The way it plays out, literally because of the rules of tennis, and I'm just like, I'm sorry. This movie, I hated it. I couldn't, and I just like I know Zendaya's done better. Spider-Man.
Euphoria.
Yeah, I've not watched that. That also not because that's bad. That just is like that's a lot.
It's intense.
That's a lot in that movie.
It's intense.
Yeah, I've been in the room when Ashley's watched it, and I'm just like, man, somebody give me some soap. I gotta clean off here.
No, yeah, I have to watch Bluey afterwards to make myself happy.
Let's just say it wasn't my type of movie. I don't want to make anybody feel bad. Right, I love you. I dislike this movie so much because of so many different things. And I keep referencing, upcoming part of this video. This is probably the most Ryan and I have ever disagreed on a movie.
Easily.
I mean,
Yeah.
as in our reviews could not be further apart.
Right.
I mean,
they almost. I won't say too much.
So I mean, yeah, this movie. Whew.
All right.
But you know what? Hold on. And in Ryan's defense, I actually am in the minority here. I usually am pretty spot on with like IMDb's like average rating of like, so I'm like, okay, I'll give this like I'm like within 0.5 of usually, or like at least a point of within a review. I'm like, okay, I'd give this a 6. Oh, people are giving it about a 6.8. I was like, okay, I'm within 1. This one, I am very much in the minority, like very, 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 very much. I'm in like this is like an average of like 7.5, maybe 8 amongst viewers. So I'm clearly like, I don't get it. So that is what's in definitely in Ryan's defense for sure. So, but that was my number 1 poo-poo movie.
All right. So then let's move on to our top 5 of the year. And then after, well, you guys want to do like some random top 5s in the middle before we do our best movies? Just to kind of get that out of the way and end on a higher note?
I have a few honorable mentions. I have like 5 or 6 of them, something like that.
Okay,
So,
then before we get to our movies, I do have some top 5 because I did watch like an equal amount of TV and stuff like that for the year. And I do have top 5 TV shows. A couple honorable mentions for my TV shows though is The Gentleman. I thought that was a very good put together show, especially his brother. It is a different plot, but the same plot from the movie, if that makes sense. But it is done very well. My Adventures of Superman season 2 was very good. I think like they they're doing a very good job with Superman, and I do like Jack Quaid as the voices of Superman and stuff. Also, going on with my comic book stuff, Batman Cape Crusader was done very well. If you like the Batman the Animated Series, which is my number one animated series of all time, Batman Cape Crusader kind of follows in that, and it does do like this 40s noir. It is a little bit more detective than it is like action and stuff like the original one was. And it does do some interesting twists on some of the villains that they introduce. And Griselda, Amy and I watched that at the beginning of the year, and it was done very well. Sofia Vergara did a very good job. So those are some of my honorable mentions. My number five this year was Fallout. Surprised me because I didn't play the games. But I enjoyed like it is, yes, it is hyperly violent. It is a little quirky, mysterious, all that stuff. But it does surprise me. And I think it not playing the games probably helped me a little bit and enjoying it a little bit more, but I did like it a lot. Number four was The Penguin. Christina Milioti was robbed this year at the Golden Globes for her award. She should have won that. I think that she was amazing in that show. Colin Farrell was great. I think that they did a lot of good world building to help with the Batman. So the Penguin was excellent. This one surprised me because there was two better shows in this. So my number three is X-Men 97. I know it's shocking. I thought X-Men 97 was a huge surprise and a huge like, yes, this is like we are getting the X-Men in Marvel, and this is how it should be done. But my number two was Shogun. It's a very good show. If you like period dramas, if you like intrigue, like it's kind of Game of Thrones light because it's not as heavy as Game of Thrones. But the accuracy, like the historical accuracy of it and the costuming, Anna Sewa she was amazing in it. But it's done very well. And my number one actually is Black Doves, which is Ben Winshaw and Keira Knightley, and it's on Netflix, 6 episodes. And she is a spy or a black dove, and Ben Whishaw plays her contact. But it's like a spy show, and it's done very, very well. I should honorable mention as well is Slow Horses season 3 came out, or season 4 came out. That is a very good show too, by the way. But that's my top 5 shows. I would highly recommend the top 2 if you guys haven't seen it. Of course, X-Men 97, but Black Doves is a quick 6 hours. And it's done very well. So I'm glad that they're making another season. You guys have any other top 5s before we go into our actual movies?
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I did not put these on a list. I actually did at one point, and then my Sony Vegas subscription expired, and I didn't have the list. So I didn't make a soundtrack countdown like I have for the last, I don't know, 10 years. And I do not know if I will have the time. But I thought I would drop off a couple soundtrack recommendations. I think out the top of my head, I think I can get my top 4 in.
Okay.
For anybody who listens to them, I mix TV, video games, and whatnot, and there were some really good ones this year. Overall, I actually really like Black Myth, but I have trouble if I don't play it, I have trouble with video games. So that was up on my honorable mentions, and Transformers had a pretty good score. Inside Out 2, some really good scores overall. But the top ones I thought going from kind of you know what, I think I do remember 5. Ish, 5-ish. I've got somewhere up there. Who knows? Who cares? So I really liked Dune Part 2. I think it was a step down from Dune Part 1, and especially after he did a release called The Sketchbook that was like 2 extra hours. But I enjoy like the whole ensemble of having it all together. Really good stuff. The film Immaculate which I'm sure no one remembers from earlier this year, had a hauntingly wonderful score by Will Bates, I think. It's the Sydney Sweeney Catholic movie.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Um, of the
Yeah,
two, I
I
was
remembered
really
it. Never
hoping,
saw it.
yeah, I was really hoping First Omen would have a score like Immaculate, and I hated the score for First Omen. Immaculate, wonderful score. It's so creepy and unsettling, but just so unique. And I'm kind of a sucker for unique horror scores. If you can have a unique sound to it. Um, Franchising is totally cheating, but nobody else does soundtrack lists, so I don't care. The Rings of Power season two soundtrack rocked. Um, it was a slight step down, but how can you get perfect? You can't. So it's almost perfect. Really great stuff. But I actually ranked it number two against the most recent score that I listened to. I can't stop listening to it. Uh, the soundtrack from The Young Woman in the Sea, the Daisy Ridley movie back in June. I don't remember who composed it. She is like, it's the first score I've ever heard from her. It's Amelia something. It is such a good score. It was so good. I almost put the film on my honorable mentions for movies because of how much it propels. And it's very much in the vein of other sports soundtracks that you've heard. It reminded me a lot of the score from
Amelia
Rush.
Warner.
Yes. Um, I highly recommend this score. It's just the most motivating, wonderful soundtrack. It's got some little James Horner kind of rhythms to it, which I love because James Horner's gone. So really great score. I didn't really have a clear number one at all through the. I usually have one. It just stays number one the whole year. Didn't have one this year, so it was really nice to pop that one in there.
I've never even heard of this film.
It Disney buried it, just like
Hmm.
Warner Brothers buried Juror number two, which is the only time I'll mention Juror number two. But good movie, Juror number two.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because I remember seeing that going, oh, Nicholas Holt. I'm kind of interested in that. And then it just kind of background.
Yeah. I will have one more little nod to make because it's the only time I'll mention this. If the score for Arcane Season 2 were a little shorter, it'd be number one. But if you're going to release
Wow.
3 hours of it, I'm judging all 3 hours of it. Very good. Um, Made me reconsider how much I listened to the first season. Um, Again, there's my TV talk. So, or my music TV
And,
talk.
and I
So
only have one because I only watched The Penguin as far as TV shows go last year, and it was great, really good.
cool. Okay, then let's jump into our movies. So let's do honorable mentions. I'm gonna shoot out my honorable mentions this year. Heretic, I thought was very good. Hugh Grant is very creepy. Alien Romulus, except for Ian Holm. That was it. Everything else about that movie was amazing.
Hmm.
Apparently, that's getting fixed for its home video release.
Sweet. Rebel Ridge was a very good movie.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
agree.
one that I'm probably sure that maybe Ryan has probably heard of. But I did talk about this, The Last Stop in Yuma County. That's actually a very good movie.
I'm not used to this feeling.
Yes, it's like a very independent movie. It is very Tarantino-esque. It is about a uh he's like a knife salesman or something that's like gets runs out of gas in this like really remote town in Yuma County, Arizona, and he comes across this little diner with the gas station right next door, and they're waiting for the gas truck to come in there,
Hmm.
and like a couple robbers that just robbed like some bank stops in, and it's very much like the beginning of Pulp Fiction, but just take like yeah, like if you take like that's probably the best way that I could describe it. If you take like the beginning of Pulp Fiction and it's that diner scene, it is literally that diner scene within an hour and a half, and they kind of expand on it. Um, and it's just this weird kind of action comedy. It's very much Tarantino-esque. I do.
While you were looking or talking about that, I was just kind of doing my research on it, looking it up, and I was like, why does this like look kind of familiar? I was like, based on the poster and kind of some shots I saw, just going on images, I was like, it reminds me of the movie Vengeance. Remember that BJ Novak film
Oh
from
yeah.
a couple years
Yes,
ago?
Yes.
It looks like that. I'm sure it doesn't play out anywhere near that. I'm just like,
No.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
hey, remember guys, that was a movie.
Yeah. It is. I'm sure they only spent like $2 million on this movie, if that.
Yeah.
But it's a very good movie. I not a very good movie, but it is a good movie. Late Night with the Devil, I thought was a very interesting kind of horror movie. Um, and Long Legs. It's one of my honorable mentions. What are you guys?
Um, my honorable mentions, with a twist was Furiosa, mainly because of oh my gosh,
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth. So, yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I can't remember. Wonderful villain. I didn't think he
Fantastic.
was gonna
Yes.
play out that. Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna play out that well, and I was like, he steals the show
Mm,
absolutely. And the overall story, fine. I think he's the reason I put it in an honorable mention. If he's not either involved or just doesn't have quite the performance that he had, it probably would just kind of disappear in the middle of the meth pile.
hmm
Um, Fly Me to the Moon actually is not a terrible film. I was expecting that being like just kind of a cheesy, this romance that's a tie-in with like the faking of the moon landing. So it's just kind of like gonna be shoehorned and nothing's gonna like feel genuine. And I'm like, you know what? It's not bad. It's it's charming. Charming is the very accurate term I would describe this movie with. Um, if you guys did you guys watch it?
I
No,
started
check
it.
it out. It's really not bad. I'm
It
like
has Apple.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's probably the downfall of just. But, if you guys ever do get the subscription or whatever, yeah, check it out. It's fairly good. Wicked's good. I mean, it'll probably be the movie of the year in my opinion, not because of like what I personally think its quality is, but I'm like one, its quality is decent. Like the film adaptation is like holds up really, really well from what I've been told to that of the playwright, and it just is a massive commercial success too. I don't know how that can't be the movie of the year, but it's decent. It's a good little watch. It's sincere. It's Wizard of Oz. Who doesn't want to see part of that? In a film adaptation. Um, Now this one, I was flip flopping. The Horizon American Saga Chapter 1 is not a bad film. It's an anthology piece where everybody merges and they're like going towards this settlement that is Horizon. It's called Horizon. So they're basically all making their way to that. And is it long? Absolutely. It probably doesn't need to be that long. I probably could feel comfortable shaving off about 20 minutes, maybe 25. And then that's probably the sweet spot. That's still a very lengthy runtime, but I felt like I didn't lose focus anywhere. I was engaged with what the characters were doing. Could their dialogue have probably been sped up a little bit? The delivery, sure, but it's not a bad story. I was engaged the whole way up until maybe like the last 15 minutes where I'm just like, this runtime. This is the problem. And it's so not niche, but it's definitely an older person film. So it didn't really have a chance, really, and Kevin Costner, God bless him, he put so much money into both of these and he didn't even make back like his contribution to the movie, to both. And so who knows what'll happen with part two. Will I watch it whenever it comes out or wherever? Sure, absolutely. I'm invested in it. I think it's worth a watch for sure. Um, and then I think my last, I could say Moana 2. It's Disney. It's cute. It's fun. Go check it out. And then Blink Twice is not bad either. It's a little sneaky. It's like you could see that being kind of a cheesy throwaway. Nobody really cares about this kind of thriller suspense, but it's not bad. It's Channing Tatum's made it twice on my list so far, so maybe he's doing something right. Um, but yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Ryan, yours. What you
All
got?
right. I apologize. I probably have too many honorable mentions, but this is my 5 outside of my 10, and then, or 5 in my 10, and then the 4 outside of it.
Okay.
So it sounds like I'm coming from the same place of like I just shuffled some movies around until Lord of the Rings: War of the Rohirrim landed in my first honorable mention spot. Why, you
Yeah.
may ask? Well, that was the blanket I was wearing earlier, and the cup I was drinking from with my special boba straw that didn't come with the cup, and I was like, clearly I enjoyed this movie enough to put it here. I saw it twice. It's super flawed. I won't even admit that about another one coming up. It's very flawed, but I enjoyed the heck out of it. I saw it twice. Um, Twisters. I thought I would push Twisters out of my list by this point because at first I loved it and then I liked it. But I still enjoyed the different direction in it, and the fact that it's a legacy sequel that's just existing on its own is pretty impressive. Most movies strive to be the first movie, and this movie strives to be anything but at times. And I really enjoyed the different take on it. I had to put Abigail on my honorable mentions. I saw it technically 4 times, and I've watched it twice since. So
I forgot
I
about
can't
Abigail.
not include it.
Yeah, I forgot about
Um,
Abigail.
Sitting just outside my 10 is Conclave. Really, really, really good.
Mm, yeah.
Little bit of a stumble right at the end for me. I still don't know how I feel about it, but the fact that I'm still thinking about something in this movie, I just the build and the process and the editing, it's really, really enjoyable. I really like that one. Um, and then for clarification, so at one point, I'm gonna fly through my other honorable mentions. I just wanted to talk more about this one. Uh, at one point, Lisa Frankenstein was my favorite movie of the year. It made its way all the way down to 10.
I'm adding that to
Wow.
mine too.
Um, I rewatched it. I tried to rewatch as many of these as I could. Uh, it is not as amazing as the first viewing, for sure. It lacks the impact of the heck is going to happen next. I still really enjoy it. It's so weird. It's so specific. The jokes are so odd. It's like everything is a weird take on something else wrapped in a reference, but only for the people who understand all of it, and everybody else is just gonna be lost. It's so bizarre. I don't even I'm not even sure I like the last 5 minutes. It feels like it doesn't know how to end. I still really enjoyed the movie. The initial reaction was really strong for me. I will include it. Fall Guy, really awesome, really fun. Extended cut, really awesome, really fun. Easy honorable mention for me. Inside Out 2, wish I had time to watch this one again, but really liked Inside Out 2. Great follow up. Um, I'd love to talk more about the South Korean horror film Exuma that I watched back in March.
Really?
Um,
Hmm.
Really, really, really interesting. My second favorite horror movie of the year. Uh,
Well,
like I said, I won't talk about it too much. I got to see it in theaters when it was playing because the AMC had like 24 screens. Got to watch it again. I mean, I'm not trying to, don't want to spoil things, but this is a selling point I know for at least one of you. If you're one of those people who are like, I miss the movies that just change halfway through, this is one of those. It's really interesting. It's really heavy in like South Korean lore, and I don't have a clue what any of that was. And I think that made my viewing experience better
hmm
because it was just this, what he's called a geomancer, and this team trying to move a grave somewhere else, and it just things just spiral out of control. Super fun. Fun might not be the right word, but it's not terrifying either. It is pretty fun sometimes. It's like they get like the little team. It's like there's like a geomancer and there's this girl who can. Anyway, really interesting movie. Really liked it. Um, and sitting just outside my top 5 is Heretic, my favorite horror film of the year. Uh, the opposite of most horror films. It doesn't really even feel like it at times. But just sitting on the edge of my seat, being like, what's going to happen next? What's this movie about? What's it saying? What's Hugh Grant going to do? Really great. I really enjoyed this movie. I knew it was going to be on the list
hmm
20 minutes in. And I like any movie that makes me think. It's good. It's a
Oh
good
yeah,
multi-perspective kind of challenging movie.
yeah.
Um, might move its way up over time. I was thinking about bumping it between 5 and 6 actually, but Heretic, really great. Really enjoyed it.
Cool. All right, so let's do our top five. So I'm going to start with my number five. And Ryan mentioned it just a second ago. Inside Out 2 is my number five. Um, I would have to say that Inside Out is my favorite Pixar movie, my Disney Pixar movie of all time, and this is a very close second. I think that I think the movie like I know that we've all talked about it before privately, but I think does this movie change anything from the first one? No, not really. Is it beat for beat from the first one? No, not at all. But I do think that they expand on what they started with the first one and they start to add other kind of like emotions and stuff. And the panic attack in the towards the end of the movie is an amazing representation of like what happens. You know what I mean? And I think it does a very good job. Like the voice cast does an amazing job all the time. I think Pixar knocks it out of the park every time with their voice cast. Um, and I just think that like this one expands a little bit more on the first one and without retreading as much as like maybe people think that it did. That's my number five.
All right. Ryan, you want to do yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only reason Inside Out wasn't higher on my list was I was trying to separate my animated films, and I like The Wild Robot just a little bit more. Um, really rocky pacing, but
Yes.
pound for
Yeah.
pound, pound for pound, I love The Wild Robot. I was sitting there and like 45 minutes in, I was like, this is incredible. And it didn't end incredible. It wasn't consistently incredible, but that movie is a 9 and sometimes a 10 while it's going. It handles so many themes so easily. It feels, I think I might have said this already, but it feels like a 90s movie. That
Mhm.
kind of storytelling. It's brisk and to the point, and I think it gets a little like it doesn't really know exactly what note it wants to end on, and that's a bit of a bummer. I think it's the last, honestly, like the last 5 minutes is really the biggest thing for me. But I just really, really, really like this movie. The animation style, music, performances, uh, it's great. I'm rooting for it for the Oscar. I watched Flow also. Didn't really care about that one. This was my animated film of the year for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'll add that to my honorable mentions. It's
You
really
can't
solid,
just
but yeah, because yeah, I think we're all pretty much on the same boat where the pacing on that one was not
yeah.
the best, and they just didn't know. Like
I
Clint and I probably agree more. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
I think, and I had this conversation about Heretic because, and in fact, I think Heretic. I think there's a couple movies on this list, on our lists, that have that rocky pacing, and it's tough because it's like the movie's so good. How do you follow
Yeah,
it up?
Hmm.
And I had that problem with Heretic
yeah,
for sure. Some people were like, "Oh, the last act," and I'm like, "That's because the rest of it's so good. Like you have to arrive at a conclusion sometime." And Wild
Yeah.
Robot, I think, just stumbles a little bit with how it wants to wrap up, and the how is not as interesting as the fabulous story being told in the movie. It's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, we've got this really great view of like motherhood and nature, and the ending's like, but the story, like the backstory, what's going on in the world, and I'm like, I guess, but go
Mhm.
back to the other stuff. So I think that might
Yeah.
be honestly might be an ad, a nice thing to say about how good the rest of these movies are.
Hmm.
That maybe it's just where it's like I want more of that the whole time.
Yeah. I think that's actually pretty valid. I would agree with that. So I, although it's just outside of my top five. I'd probably put it right there at number six if we were doing a top 10. But my number five, and I'm not gonna be like a because I love Sonic and everything. I'm not gonna put it at my number one, but I am gonna put it at my number
Do
five
it. Do
because
it.
um it's a charming little movie. Do I think that the dark tone totally hits? Because it's Shadow. Not exactly, because these are so, for lack of a better phrase, happy-go-lucky set of Sonic movies. I mean, Sonic's never like super serious anyway, but it just, when I guess maybe my memory is serving me wrong, but I remember Sonic Adventure 2, which is Shadow's debut, being just way more like darker tone in it, and it kind of fits the entire setting, if that makes sense. Whereas this, it's like he's trying to be brooding, and I get it. His character is, he's what do you call it? he's out for revenge, he's scorned, he's this, so he's very jaded and all that. And I get it. It just, when you're trying to, like, you've got all this slapstick going on too, it just kind of doesn't hit quite as hard for me. But that's my nitpick about the movie. Jim Carrey being both Dr. Robotnik and Gerald Robotnik, um, insanely done well. I don't know how they did it so like seamlessly where it literally felt like he had an identical twin playing in a same shot at the same time. Like, an old talking about, 90s movies, we have that clear cut, like, don't divide or don't cross this line where you're here and then we're going to dub you in over here. Or we're going to have this thing where, you're facing the camera this way and we've got a stand in right here. If you have like a twin or something like that. That's okay. We understand that. Like, I don't know how they did it so well. Like, I mean, he's literally like cheek to cheek with himself. And at some points, and I'm just like, what in the heck? How did they do that so well? Um, but they stayed true to a lot of elements from Sonic Adventure 2. Um, I had to like re-watch it a little bit by like just kind of peeking in during shows, and there's like a guitar riff at the beginning, just a little bit, like a very silent, like acoustic thing.
We should
And
specify that we work at movie theaters.
yeah, exactly. So, well, I can't say that I've seen it a second time because I really haven't, even though I really, really should go back and watch it a second time. But they do a lot of Easter eggs and they're playing the guitar and it's like it's Live and Learn. It's just like a little quiet acoustic version of that. And I didn't catch that the first time. And I'm like, oh hey. The film's great. It's a good nice complementary piece to this trilogy, which is, no spoiler anywhere because it literally is all over the internet. Of They announced it before this one even came out that there is going to be a fourth one. So Paramount's really knocked it out of the park with these. They're just printing money at this point, and it's not because they can just churn out Sonic and no matter what it's going to make money. No, these are actually genuinely good quality films, and I highly recommend if you're any video game person, Sonic person, anybody. I mean, if you're just a film guy, just go see it. It's awesome. So then my number 4 would be, and you know what? I didn't expect to do this, and then I was like, I kept looking back, and I was like, this was actually a generally solid film. Is Saturday Night. Very well written, very well directed. Really everybody who played their like live action or their I guess their counterpart, whoever they were playing, everybody did really well, especially the guy who played Chevy Chase. Clint and I were sitting there and going, it literally looks like him from that long ago, and it sounds like him too. His mannerisms, his literal like voice sounds like him. It just was like that was crazy. And the pacing was pretty solid. I won't say like perfect because it felt a little, for me personally, just a hair sluggish at some points, but the writing and everybody's performances really really shined in what probably won't make didn't make a ton of money. I don't know what its budget was versus what it brought in, but who was expecting that? I think this movie needed a more attention than it got. So, but really, really solid film. If you have any, um, like, like I'm not a Saturday Night Live guy. Like, I don't really care about the show. I mean, there was some point I did. If you care about like the origins of it and like, hey, how did this come about? It feels like it's really accurate. Liberties taken, of course, probably, but it's a solid film. Genuine. I gave it like an 8 out of 10. Really solid film. Ryan. So I was in 4. You're number 4.
Am I doing 4 and 3, or am I sandwiched back and forth?
You're
You're
sandwiched.
still
again.
sandwiched.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Good, because I'll talk a lot about my number 3. So the nicest thing I'll say about this year, my top 4 were all 9s. So I would have probably put this higher. I got a chance to rewatch 2 of my top 4 a few times. One of them was too new. This one, Angel Studios makes the movies really hard to find. So I bumped Cabrini down to number 4,
Oh
which at
yeah.
one point was my number 1 because I can't freaking rewatch it for less than $20.
Oh,
That said, I still really liked Cabrini for a 2.5 hour history drama. I thought it was really compelling. I thought it was great performances. Of course, because it's faith-based film, it's getting completely ignored for things like production design and costume design and things that I think it really excels at. Which is, it doesn't exist to do that. And I've even kind of taken some notes. I talked to some other people who were like, "Oh, we don't think it's enough of this or enough of that," and I'm like, it's exactly where it needs to be, kind of right in the middle of like, it's about this person's faith and works. There's something biblical to be said about that there, but point being, I
Hmm.
just really admire like, hey, it's somebody who wants to do good things. And it's just like the world seems to be pushing against that for some reason.
right.
And I thought it was really compelling. I thought it was great. Good score all around. I think it was really good. I'd love to rewatch it to really validate those thoughts.
I was gonna say, Ryan, you probably could just like give a, you know what, take that kind of to these digital rental places and um just go ahead and buy it for $30. That way you own it
See, I
physically.
don't want to do that either, Alex. That's the problem. I own a lot of this list already. Everything I can own on this list, I own for a reasonable price, but I will not pay that much for that movie. And I think that's
No, you
powering it a
shouldn't.
little bit. But
I
also,
mean, I paid a little over that much. I think I paid like $45 for my collector's version of Godzilla minus one, and I will gladly do that again if I had to. Um,
fair.
but that's a rare occurrence, very rare occurrence. So you should not have to do that.
I almost put the black and white cut of Godzilla minus one on here, but I was like, that's cheating.
That's cheating.
I also saw the re-release of Les Mis. I love that, but no
Yeah.
Les Mis. All
No,
right,
no, no.
that
Okay.
was my number 4.
My number 4 was Anora. Um,
Huh.
I like, just watched this last night too because I was trying to catch up on some stuff. But I thought Anora was really good. Um, it took me a second to understand what the movie was about. Because it's a very straightforward type of movie. And when you watch it the first time, you kind of go, so what? Like it's just kind of like it is literally like how could she not understand like how why this guy just kind of like dumped her after the sorry spoilers for this. Um but it's a little bit more than that. And when I sat and like actually thought about the movie and thought about what the movie kind of represents and stuff, then I was like, okay, this is what it represents. It represents the working class and classism and how, people are in different classes are treated and how she's trying to work her way up into a different class and she thinks that this is her way out and things don't happen the way that she wants them to. Yes, Mikey Madison is very good in this movie. Um, Probably could have toned down the nudity, but other than that, it was very good. It was a very good movie. I thought it was very good. I thought the cinematography in the movie was very good as well. I was very. I think that's what capped me into the movie, and her Brooklyn accent, is pretty spot on. Like it was very good. I was like, she's from California. Wow. Okay, but she's done. Yeah. So that's my number 4 on Nora. Um, My number 3 did move down a couple spots from number 1, but my number 3 is Civil War. I thought that this movie, like we talked about this movie towards the beginning of the year, but it came out in April,
Hmm.
March, somewhere around there. Anyway,
I definitely
I
thought
think
it was,
April.
yeah, I definitely thought it was going to top your list. So,
yeah,
so
it
you and I
was.
each had our best movies drop way down.
Yes, yes. Because I did have this in my number 1, and then I watched my number 1 and my number 2, and I was like, these have to go up a little bit further. Um, but I do think that's like I could intertwine any of these things if like I had a better argument for either one. But like Civil War, I thought was a very good movie. The message was done very well. The action scenes were done very well. And the cast, amazing performances, especially Jesse Plemons, who was only in the movie for like 5 minutes. That was scary. Not even gonna lie, that was scary. But that's my number three.
That was my favorite scene of that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Alex, I'm putting this low for you. But having watched
You
it
don't
twice,
have to do that.
having watched it twice, I am confident that Challengers is at least my number three. I can't emphasize enough. It's my second favorite sports movie of all time.
Oh,
Challengers is just a feeling. It lays out a kind of story about these characters, and every decision, confusing or questionable, is all about putting you in that feeling, in that mindset. And we said this for Halloween Ends, and I can't believe I'm just comparing Challengers to Halloween Ends. Alex, you're probably happy about that. But I I often would just rather have a swing and a miss than nothing. And if I'm putting this as the polar opposite of a film like Ghostbusters, this film swings every single chance it gets, way too much sometimes. Let's follow the tennis ball around. No thanks. I really don't want to have a seizure today. But goodness, I love every single decision in this movie. It's just meant to heighten feelings. The score is obnoxious on its own, but in the movie, the weird decisions and the questions make you wonder what they're there for. And then once you start to click in what they're there for, it's not about what a traditional movie would make you feel. It's about what the characters are feeling. They're just walking from point A to point B. But for them, this is a major life decision that's ahead of them, and they have to make it right then and there. And the music emphasizes that. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I hope they win an Oscar for this score. Matt, you're wrong. It's objectively perfect for the movie. I love the way it changes when it gets to the end and it's genuinely drama. Yeah, let's put it in a children's choir because it's like we're slowing down and the characters have to make contemplative decisions. They don't know what they want. Sometimes they do know what they want. And that's all. It's like tennis is just this conductor for these three characters figuring their lives out and just using each other. And it's just so compelling and interesting, and I love it. And I will be done.
what is your number one sports movie?
Rush with Chris Hemsworth and Daniel Bruhl. And that won't change. That's a 10 out of 10. I don't like sports movies as much, but Rush, I freaking love Rush.
Okay, so I'm gonna interject in here because I know that I am the divorced stepchild of this
Uh-huh.
whole thing. Um, there are points of like what Alex says that I understand, and then there are points of what Ryan says that I do understand. I do feel like this movie is more of like a character study on each of these three players and how their level of commitment to life and to their sport, and not even their sport, but just what they do it for a living, um, and how they, like Ryan just said, how they use each other to gain whatever it is that they want to gain. And I don't, and when it comes down to it, it's just about her missing her chance because due to injury, and her feeling like not Josh O'Connell, the other kid, the blonde kid, can't remember his name now.
Mike Face.
Him being, huh?
Is it Mike Faced?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where he's the safe um bet to move forward into whatever it is that she wants to do and what she wants to achieve, and that's how she uses him to like get the recognition and the money and everything else like that. But with Josh O'Connor and being reckless and being what he is more of what she should have been and what she sees more of herself into him. And so I get both points. It is a kind of a weird vessel to use tennis to get all of this out of. And yes, there are some times where that soundtrack is a little
Oh, it's so much. It's so much.
questionable.
My heart goes too fast when I listen to it in the car. I was like, I
Right.
can't do this score. And
S-
yeah.
So yeah, I agree with both of you. It's so funny.
It, it's all good. No, no hard feelings here. I honestly, I get your points. It just at the end of the day, it just is like I don't know. The feelings part is just like I
I
don't
think
I don't know.
it'll make more sense. It just this year especially, I was just looking for like different. I'm like I'm tired
Yeah,
of having movies like Rogue One on my top spot, only to have the studio drag that franchise downhill later. So I'm like,
yeah.
what challenges me to think more? And I was like, even little things. So I've got this thing that I learned in 2016 because of the movie Suicide Squad, where bad editing is usually a sign when you have a shot that lasts, or you have not enough shots that last more than 3 to 5 seconds. Uh, Challengers, I was like, oh, we're cutting so much, but it's so intense and so quick and so focus pulling. And, I even like that it's like making me rethink how I was viewing movies before. So,
Yeah. I think about that often. The whole,
mhm.
what
Quick
was it,
cuts
seven
not usually a
seconds
good
rule?
thing.
Quick cut. Okay, that was more of the
Yeah.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think about that every once in a while. Um no, but my number three, we'll move from that Zendaya movie to another Zendaya movie, is Dune Part Two. Um Really good follow up to the original. Um Solid score. Again, it's not borrowed from the first one. I mean, it's borrowed, but it's like borrowed mixed,
Builds upon.
but it's built upon. Thank you. Way more accurate than what I was saying. It's it's a um great story. I don't know how true it is to the book because I've been trying to read the book, but I keep not finishing. Um, but I like the performances. I think the story's great. The music does swell up at all the right moments for me, and I'm just like, and a lot of the characters like Zendaya in this very heartfelt. Really, it feels like her character. What's her character's name again?
Johnny.
Yanni. Yes,
Chani.
I think. Yeah, I thought it was. Oh no, it is Chani. It is Chani. I think that she played really, really well in this. And I think her character definitely she performed as if she like super cared about Paul. And I like um who was oh shoot, I can't remember. It'll come back to me later. But just generally feeling I think I don't really have too much specific about the movie. It just generally and genuinely like was good. Like it's a good extension of the first movie, hence being part two. And I'm like, I can't wait for the next because it's not supposed to be Dune Part Three. I don't think it's supposed to be Dune
Messiah.
Messiah.
Messiah. Thank you.
Mhm.
I was going to say Children of Dune or Messiah. I can't remember.
Children
But
of Dune will be four.
yeah, but I hear it gets really, really weird after that. So who knows where they'll go with that? But it's a great film. I don't have much specifics. Ryan probably could help me with that, but I just it's a great film. I
Finish your
couldn't.
number two, and then I'll help you with that.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so we will segue to two. Um, I didn't expect this at all. I just thought it was going to be, fine. Not really much for me. I thought it was going to be more of a disappointing movie. Nosferatu. Um, Ryan and I actually sat down and watched it together in our group, and in fact I've watched it another time since, and it kept like even though I know what happened and everything, how they would change up a little bit, I genuinely am like this was a great. Robert Eggers has me on his finger, man. I mean, between that, like the Northman, and I haven't even seen the Lighthouse, but I know that I'll like the Lighthouse. There you go.
There's my thoughts on Nosferatu right there.
With that, I get that. It's not even a disvalid, if that's a word. That's a valid point. I get that.
It's
But
a nitpick. Apparently,
it
it is
is
a good intention from it too.
but Bill Skarsgård, Great in this. I couldn't like other than like I can tell that the makeup and everything, the cosmetics, all was him for sure. Like I can tell it's all, but like they must have like dubbed over that voice. There's no, I can't, I just can't. If he did that, if I learn later on that he did that, the Count Orlok, his and voice, I'm gonna be like, that's an insane impression. Thank you.
That was good.
Um,
That was good, Alex.
I if it was him, I'm very like that was great. I love the shadowing. I love not a single one of the actors was flat. Everybody performed great. Even like somebody on a like smaller end of the, screen time, Aaron Taylor Johnson, great. Everybody was great in this film. And I love how it played out like basically as a poem more than like a straight up like monster Dracula like horror film or a monster film. I'm like I think the ending was just right, and Willem Dafoe practically steals the at least the second half of the show or the movie. He's nobody's bad in this film. I can't wait to own this. I would gladly pay, it's, what is it, MSRP right at the start. Not a problem. I genuinely, I would want to see more of adaptations like this. So, I didn't even expect it. So that is my number two. So Ryan, tell me more of what I liked about my number three.
Alex Dune rocks.
Yay!
So yeah, Dune
Big rock.
2. I wasn't 100% sure where it would land. I was slotting it here because I've only watched it like 7 times. Um, a lot. I kept watching 1 and 2 together, and then I was like, I can do this for a while. So the continuation of the story, and I should preface, I haven't read the book, but I'm also incredibly familiar with the source material, because I'm a nerd, I guess. I don't like the second half of the story as much. And it did keep part 2 down for me overall, from the perfect 10 of the first Dune, which is space politics, to the second half, which is space religion. Um, Third half is a lot more, and I'm simplifying it a lot. But point being, how do you take a movie with the second half of a story that essentially takes your protagonist and turns him into the world's antagonist? You do it like this.
Yeah.
You know, the negative character arc. You're watching a regression. You're watching a world strengthen itself, but also come to heads with the ideals that it's trying to be freed from at the same time. And it's doing so. It's gorgeous. It flows so well for a 2 hour and 45-minute movie. It
Hmm.
still interjects those unique ideas. It's like, the first film we get a little bit of the Harkonnens world, and this film it's like, yeah, let's look at like this black sun and what that color would look like in a full-on series of events. Um, just gorgeous stuff, just incredible. And I think my favorite thing about Dune 2, every time I watched it, was I would just sit there in anticipation for little moments, little bits where it's like the two of them sitting and Paul and Chani are talking, or uh, I'm waiting to snicker at oh no, it's Javier Bardem, who's really funny in this
Yeah.
movie. Instead of waiting for like the big action sequences, movie lives in these little moments that are just so wonderful. Um, yeah, great stuff.
As it was written.
This is written.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah,
I know that was. I mean, they like dumbed down that character, but like at the same time, I'm like that's what he's like seeking
yeah,
in this movie.
yeah.
And
Well,
Austin Butler, correct me if I'm wrong, he was solid. It took me like probably an extra 10 minutes to be like, oh wait, that's Austin Butler. I forgot about that.
yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, it is him. So he performed pretty good.
Alex, to his credit, I'm gonna go on a tiny tangent, then I'll be done. One of my favorite moments in the whole movie is when Paul went. I'm gonna spoil Dune 2, but there's a sequence, and Paul is victorious but injured, and Javier's like Lisa Al Gaib, and everyone, and it's funny. It's really funny, but it's also like the character understands the situation and
Yeah.
100% believes it. but also his like quick answer is like, oh yeah, I gotta cover for Paul real quick. Paul's bleeding on the floor. I gotta make it look like it was a unanimous thing, kind of thing. It's great. It's like it's so subtle. It's like there is more to all of these characters, and they just handle it so well.
Yeah, it's a solid film all around. Absolutely. All right, Clint, you're number two.
So my number two is with Alex. Mine is Nosferatu as well. Um, Robert Eggers is like tearing it up, man. I
Hmm.
think he's an amazing director. And yes, Alex, you should watch The Lighthouse. That is a very good movie. Um, The Witch
Me
is a very good
thinks
movie
I
as
own
well.
it.
The
Huh.
Lighthouse, you
Whatever.
probably should.
I I think I got it for a deal. I think I got it for like a $5 deal somewhere. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, I highly suggest watching. And with the just a small tangent on The Lighthouse, and it's shot in 3/4, so or 4/3, so it's boxed, and it
Hmm.
makes it that way so that like you feel what's the word I'm looking for? Uh,
Um,
like
claustrophobic.
claustrophobic. Yes, thank you. Like you feel claustrophobic inside this box that they're in
Hmm.
the lighthouse. Anyway, but Nosferatu, yes, the cast was amazing. The special effects were amazing. I particularly enjoyed the camera work, the lighting. Lighting of Nosferatu was done very well, with a lot of natural lights and stuff like that. Um, and yes, Bill Skarsgård does an amazing job. Rose Depp, Rose Lily Depp does a great job.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I knew that I knew walking into this movie that I would actually like the movie. I didn't think that I would like it this much. Um, and I do appreciate that he does try a little bit to use the German expressionists um, and some of his shots and stuff. So I thought that was done very well.
Hmm.
My number one, I think Alex mentioned it before, is Saturday Night. Um, again,
There you
it
go.
like I know this is my list and I shouldn't care what people think, but no, is this going to be on an awards tangent? No, it's not. But I enjoy like these movies, these kind of like historical, like yes, they're interpretations of historical events in film and TV history, but that stuff like really kind of intrigues me. And to see how chaotic it was this first night of the first showing of Saturday Night in the 70s is amazing just to see like where it started and where it's at and how it started as this like them trying to push themselves onto TV to make these like sketch comedies and stuff like that to where it's like a TV staple now. Like it's so iconic on TV now that it's just like everybody knows what Saturday Night Live is now. And where it started is just amazing. And yes, Corey Michael Smith, who does Chevy Chase, was perfect. Like he looks and moves like Chevy Chase, and I thought that it was just amazing how he did that. And I love how like the movie does the countdown. Like the runtime is the same as it's going to put on to the show. So that's my number one.
All right, Ryan. Hold on. Can I guess it? Wait, I don't even know if I have a guess. It's
I was
probably
gonna
something I've
say
never heard of.
I have not talked about this movie with you guys.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
We're gonna
I was actually really hoping to sneak it in there, but Clint, you talked about Anora.
yes.
Oh.
I loved Anora. I
Hmm.
have not been able to stop thinking about it. There is nothing like sitting down and watching a movie that you think is going to be the movie you're watching and getting blindsided by what the movie actually is. And the funny thing is, I don't like Sean Baker's other movies.
Oh,
I,
really?
I don't care about any of them. I've seen two out of his three other ones. I didn't see Red Rocket because I stopped liking him. I was like, I don't want to watch any more from this guy. And now this is like my dog in the race at the Oscars, which
Mm,
apparently it's going to lose all of to a 3.5 hour Adrian Brody movie. Who cares? I loved this movie so much. Um,
wow.
it's so funny, but weird, and it's so well shot, and the performances are fantastic. And I mean, Clint, you said everything I could say about it, but like the way that this movie subtly deals with its themes and really a really strong character arc
Mhm.
is just so interesting. And I've seen some little things, and I don't want to give it away for Alex, who I'm highly recommending this movie too.
I mean, between you guys, I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah,
probably will check it out now.
it's really good. Go into it without expectations, but it's I love the way that the film builds on ideas. The titular idea being one of them of her name. It's
Mhm.
just I don't know. It's like when you're watching it and you're like, cinema.
Yeah.
It was like that. I was smiling. I
Yeah.
was having a great time. I think I was the only person in the theater when it was playing because it didn't do well when we got it like in the middle of early Thanksgiving or early November or something like that. But
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Uh, I don't know what else to say about it. Something that could beat Dune.
Was it,
Yeah,
see,
right.
what's funny about this movie is that like when you watch it, Alex, if you watch it straight through, you'll kind of like I did. I was just like, why is it? Why is this so like? Why are people talking about this movie? It is so like a kind of like a quirky type of. I shouldn't say even quirky. It's just like
It's
like
I
if
think
you
it's
watch.
quirky.
Yeah, it's a little quirky, but if you watch it straight through and you don't give any type of thought to it, you're just kind of like, okay, so you know what I mean? But like then you start to think about her and the situations that she puts herself in, and then you think about like the other characters that like then like come into her bubble, and then you're going, oh, this is why.
I think,
So
Huh.
yeah. Alex, it's a very perfect and subtle anti-movie. So here's one little example too. So like, and this is just one of my favorite jokes in the movie, and it's not going to sound funny, but it's going to be funny. So at one point, like a character gets hit in the head, and then later on, they're like, "I think I've got a concussion," and the other characters are like,
yeah,
and then they're all like 15 minutes later, they're all driving and they're in the car, and this character just like throws up in the car. And it's so funny because it's like, yeah, you get hit in the head, you get a concussion, and then you get sick, like go to the hospital. But it's like the watching the characters' reactions as events just randomly spiral because that's what would happen. It's so funny, but also like I was saying, like the character arc is so grounded and interesting that it's a really funny but also really dramatic movie. Like it's
yeah.
good, you know. That
Yeah, Andrew was raving about it too. He said it was a really solid film. So between all of y'all's reviews, I'll have to check it out now.
You have
So
like I will say because I know you. I will say that you have to take the first 35 to 40 minutes the very much of a grain of salt because there's a lot of explicit stuff in like the first 30 to 45 minutes. And then after that it's just straight through. But like you kind of have to be like, okay. Like even I was just kind of like, all right, we're doing this again. Okay. And again. All right. But yeah,
I'm just gonna go into it with like pretending like we didn't even have this conversation, just blank
you
slate, just
should.
nothing. Just
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be like Jello, like and then just
And And that's a very good that's a very good way to go with it, Alex, because it's just like I did as well. Because I knew the story. Like I kind of understood what it was, but I didn't do much deep diving with it because I knew that um like if I thought about it too much and like read about it too much, then like it would kind of ruin what it was. But yeah, I would do that. For good
who
stuff,
directed
man.
it again?
Sean Baker.
Not familiar with his other titles.
Um the Florida Project. Was a movie in like
Uh,
2019, I think it was. It was about homelessness, I thought, or something like that.
Yeah, it's like kids living in a motel, squatting in a motel in the shadow of
Yeah.
Disney, and it's like,
Is it William Dafoe, that
2017.
movie?
yes, he is. He
Yep.
was really good.
Hmm.
He was the thing I
Yeah,
liked about that movie.
right.
Huh.
And then Red Rocket,
Interesting.
I think, was
Yeah,
another movie
and
of
then
his.
Tangerine was the one shot on the phone, right? That was him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was okay.
Okay.
You're okay.
Well, I'll
This
I'll at least have to check out
Mm.
Honora.
Yeah.
All right. So now my number one. and I'm surprised. I'm a
Yeah,
little surprised that
we
it's
haven't.
not. Nobody's talked about it yet. Not a single word or anything. No indication. No honor mention one way or the other. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Absolutely love that movie. I can't recommend that movie because I lose people halfway during the title. So
That's
it's hard.
fair.
I just say ungentlemanly warfare. I just say that, or go look up the Henry Cavill, World War II movie. Um, Such a charming duo between Alan Ritchson and Henry Cavill. Absolutely, I want to see more of that in more movies. I hope they continue to work together because that they worked so well off of each other, and it was just witty. It was fun. It knew when to be serious and when to kind of throw out the joke here and there. Henry Cavill was this is one of the best films I've ever seen him in. I mean, I saw Man from Uncle, really love that. I mean, I like his Superman and all that. We all know him in that. But I mean, this is just, and I think it was a little bit cheat codish for me personally because I love Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards the most of. That's my favorite Tarantino, and this was basically like I wouldn't say beat for beat like that, but it's very, very similar. And, it's dealing with Nazis and it's taking this little bit of history, but probably changing it a little bit. And, it's these uh charismatic guys, but unorthodox guys. And it's just fun. And the story, like, while I think fairly accurate from Winston Churchill's recently classified, well, now declassified journals, probably accurate. And it's just a fun watch. I loved it. I couldn't wait to own it. Had to wait until it went on deal because we're deal hunters here too. But I was like, I fell in love with the movie, and I was like, you're doing yourself a disservice by not watching this film. I I couldn't get enough of it. It was so good. But again, it's a little bit of a cheat code with me because I like that like involvement of historical, but also like a little bit of comedy, but like it knows when not to be funny. And I think and the best thing about it, like this is gonna be almost like a slap in the face to um who directed it?
Guy Ritchie,
Uh,
right?
Yeah.
Guy Ritchie, yes. This, like, again, it'll sound like a slap to the face. This doesn't feel, in my opinion, anything like his directorial style at all. And I think the movie, like, flourishes because of that. Because if do your tropes here and there, it's like, okay, normally Guy Ritchie has like a quick little like meeting amongst all of his characters, which he has here, yes, but I didn't notice it that much if it happened. Where, all right, quick shot. Okay, we're gonna do this. Now we're gonna do this. All right, you got the plan here, and then we're gonna go like cut shot in between the actual event that they're planning happening and then the actual planning of the event. And I didn't see any of that happening, um, that I recall. But though, just his overall style was not in here. And again, it sounds like I'm like I don't like his style, but I think it like shows your growth as a director when you are able to like morph it in a way that you are like, oh, I can totally tell that was him. I had to even remind myself that it was him. I think this movie did so, so well, and it wasn't talked about enough. And I'm sure it didn't make that much money because, you know, who wants to see a World War II movie these days? So, but it was a 9. It was my only 9 out of 10 this entire year. Nosferatu was close, but I had to ultimately settle on an 8 for Nosferatu. But that was my number one this year.
Sweet. And you should
Yes.
stick by your convictions, sir. I did with Saturday Night Live, so for Saturday night. And that's it. Unless you guys got anything else. No?
No,
Okay.
no,
Sorry, my cat is like on my desk now.
meow.
What she's doing. Yeah. I don't know what she's doing. Anyway. Okay, so I'm going to try very hard, and I hope that you guys try with me to make this more of a consistent thing. Since
Yay.
we get into like March, and then when it all kind of goes to poo. Um, but I know that we all have lives and we all have jobs, and you guys work at the movie theaters, which I'm still jealous of. So, but next week or this coming Friday is Wolfman. So I think that this is a good way to transition back into these meetings with Wolfman. If you guys have any objections, no objections.
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool.
I
So
want to jokingly wait for Dogman so we can do Dogman and Wolfman together, but that's too much time.
You
when
know
does that come
that was
out?
the running joke. End of January. Dog
Oh,
man. But that was the running joke at work. We just kept thinking of what other movies have man in them. I was like Bicentennial Man, Little Man, uh, and then I started cheating by doing all the superheroes: Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. So that was just the running joke.
yay. Okay.
Yay.
Then let us gather next week and we can talk about Julia Garner and her running away from a wolf man in the middle of the woods. Sounds good?
Yeah, and then we
All
can
right,
also
guys.
watch Kiki Palmer in one of those days or one of them days. No, I'm
We're
just
not
kidding.
getting it.
Maybe, who knows?
No,
Well, we might be
We
now.
we
I don't think so.
you're getting it, whether you like it or not.
No, I think we're picking up The Last Showgirl instead.
Oh,
I actually want to see
that's
that.
weird.
I've heard it's good.
Hmm.
Yeah. I watched the Actors on Actors. I know we're going off time for this, but like Actors on Actors with Mikey Madsen and Pamela Anderson. It's actually kind of interesting. Anyway, it's not a plug for Variety. So, all right, guys. Then I would say that you could start following us on Instagram and stuff like that. But I have to reset all that stuff up because we're not consistent enough. But please follow us here at YouTube. Subscribe and click and like and stuff, and leave us a comment. We'll always like to hear from everybody. But until next week, I will see you guys later.
See you guys.